and Pearson, News and Talk 1380 WAOK, Voices in the Streets, Unfiltered. Jermaine Xavier Brandon on the MIC with my girl.
Desi T.
My man's.
Austin McCall.
My other man.
Hey, do it all.
And we got the man, the myth, and the legend. All right, civil rights activist, okay? Alpha Phi Alpha representative, all right? President of the state conference of the NAACP. My man, my big bro. Y'all give it up for Attorney Griggs one time, please. In the building today.
Got some bombs.
What's going on, y'all?
Of course he's getting the bombs. All right, so Attorney Griggs, we had to call you because whenever there's something that's popping off, we call you. Because pretty much you know what's going on. You're in the trenches, you're in the streets, and you can give a good outlook on what's happening. So can you explain to the audience who are just tuning in on the Odyssey app, shout out to y'all at 1380 WAOK, what is happening with the Tennessee 3 and what should our approach being lookers, or how do we actively participate in the movement in solidarity with them?
So last Friday, after the shootings that occurred at Covington Catholic School in Tennessee, which was a week before that, 3 lawmakers decided to take the well and to raise their voices to change gun regulation in the state of Tennessee. They took the well. They had bullhorns. They had a protest. They were in partnership with March for Our Lives and many other young activists in Tennessee. And so on Friday, the Tennessee state legislature voted to expel 2 of the 3. Both were 2 African-American gentlemen. One was a representative from Memphis. The other is a representative from Nashville. And so there is an uproar, and rightfully so. When we're talking about the continued issues of gun violence in our country, we need elected officials to stand up.
Facts.
Mm-hmm.
But Tennessee is a super majority state, which means one party has all of the power in that state legislature, and they didn't like that individuals were questioning their power. So they had to send a message, and the message was they expelled 2 of the 3. The only difference between the 2 of the 3 was race. Mm-hmm. And so what we need to take from this in Georgia and other places is this is not an aberration. This is the norm. Mm-hmm. I can remember 2.5 years ago, a young lady who was protesting for voting rights was dragged through the state capitol here in Georgia and arrested, and ultimately became my client, Park Cannon, and we had to fight for 11 days to clear her name. Yeah. This is happening in Texas. It's happening in Florida, where you see people are rolling back the teaching of history. Mm-hmm. We see that abortion rights are being stripped away, and now our voices are being silenced. You have to take into account that these 2 legislators are from African-American communities. Yeah. They represent Memphis and Nashville. Mm-hmm. And so now those communities are without representation in the Tennessee House of Representatives, and that's a real travesty. And so what we must do is to join in solidarity with them, demanding they be placed back in their seats and asking the federal government and other states to step in. It's time for the partisan rancor that turns into racism to end. Mm-hmm. And we have to be on the front lines demanding that happen.
Now, what does that look like as far as, do we need to make the phone calls? Do we need to do the emails? What would that look like for us to push for them to get back?
Emails, phone calls, tweets, text messages. Support both of the Justins. Go to Tennessee 3, the hashtag. Go to their websites. Go to their social media. But also call the Speaker of the House. Call the governor and demand that they be reseated, because they represent overwhelmingly African-American constituents who have a voice, and that voice is demanding common sense gun regulation. Mm-hmm. We're not just talking about what happened at the Catholic school. We're talking about gun violence that happens on the streets every single day in Tennessee, in Georgia, all over the country. And it's time for us to have common sense gun regulation, or at least have the conversation. They didn't even want to have the conversation. The Speaker of the House had cut the mic off, which is why they had the bullhorn. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't recognize them. When questions were asked, they would allow the question to be asked and the 5 minutes to be taken up and no response. So these are the type of things that were going on in the Tennessee legislature. And this is the same legislature where a legislator actually peed in another legislator's seat and was not expelled.
What year was this?
That's wild.
That was a few years ago.
And
so this is what we're dealing with. The peed on the seat, didn't pee on him. Other people that have been expelled from the House of Representatives in Tennessee, one was convicted of bribery, The other was convicted of child abuse and child molestation. All the others have remained seated. And so this is clearly an issue of race. The other young lady who stood with the Tennessee Three, who's, now Gloria Johnson was allowed to stay. And the only reason she was allowed to stay was, one, her lawyer did make the argument she didn't have the bullhorn, but two, she really didn't stand as verbose as the other two in her defense of her freedom of speech, her ability to stand for her electorate. And we do support her, but we want to really give voice to the Tennessee 2 and support them.
All right, News and Talk 1380 WAOK, Voice in the Streets, Unfiltered. Again, we're talking to Attorney Griggs about the Tennessee 3. We're going to play a clip from Gloria Johnson, who is one of the three. She is the older white woman who was asked a question about why she thinks she wasn't expelled versus everyone else. And so here's what Gloria had to say.
Why were those two expelled and you weren't?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. I'm a 60-year-old white woman, and they are two young black men. In listening to the questions and the way they were questioned and the way they were talked to, I was talked down to as a woman, mansplained to, but it was completely different from the questioning that they got. And this whole idea that, that you have to almost assimilate into this body to be like us.
Oh, can you give us an example? I mean, how were they spoken to that struck you as racist?
Just in a demeaning way, and saying that, if you're going to come into this body, you have to act like this body, and that sort of thing.
Now, here. We don't even have time. We don't have time. Call us up. We don't have time.
No.
We don't have time. We're going to get into it, though. But call us up, 448-922-2703. If you have something to say. Attorney Griggs, I definitely want to hear more of your thoughts. And I want to talk about, were they actually in the wrong? Like, from a, legal perspective of what
it looks like in the house.
What constitutes as protest versus,
temper tantrums, as they called it.
From Representative Barrett, he's one of the 5 people that voted to, expel him. He said the reason that they weren't given less severe measures like censoring them is that they believed it wasn't enough and the message needed to be sent.
Yeah, he said he wanted to teach them that they need to learn how to behave.
And so it's sounding like
that's the animus there, the racial animus.
It's just too much coded language.
Listen to the master. That's what it sounds like.
You was explaining. We gotta go to break. You were explaining to me that people they just don't see the world as most modern people see it. I just can't believe people would do this and think that something so blatant wouldn't get picked up and talked about.
Well, it did, and we're definitely talking about it right here on the Hottest Show in the Streets, Sundays. News and Talk 1380 WAOK, Voice in the Streets Unfiltered. Give us a few minutes. We'll be right back.